Good morning, everybody. How are you today? I hope you've had a good week so far. What a glorious morning it is here. The constant storm clouds and rain have moved aside for sunshine, and it's been interesting. I ask my phone every morning what the weather's going to be like, just so I know what to dress. And for the past 2 weeks, the phone has been telling me that it's highs of 14, lows of 8, rain in the morning, thunderstorms in the afternoon, and possible rain in the evening. Except for today. No rain at all today. Highs of 18 or 20, which is phenomenally different. So I'm using a number 0.4 black pen. So I have sketched out the outline, and I'll give you 10-15 minutes to sketch that out, because it's the pen work that's the important bit today. I'm just trying to find the bird song. But I hope you've had a good week so far. Hurtling towards the weekend, which also looks really nice, and a bank holiday weekend at that, and half term. So it is here in North Oxfordshire coming up anyway. So hopefully it'll be nice weather all round, because we could really do with it. May has felt like the longest January in records since records began, hasn't it? It's been a very long, cold and damp 6 months. We had a massive hailstorm here on Monday or Tuesday evening. I had like several inches of hail. Shocking. Anyway, I'm going to give you 10 minutes to sketch it out. I have sketched out very, very lightly and vaguely where everything's going to be. Because it's all about the pen work, not the pencil work. So you'll need as much information as you can, really, to get it right. If you're missing chunks out, then it's not possibly going to be as helpful, because you need all the bits. I've missed off a bit of window, he says, as he tells you all to do it, and then doesn't do any of it himself. So a bit of a sketch just to get everything in situ, and then we can add a bit of pen work. Hello. Right. So I think quarter past we'll get the pen out, and once we go to the pen, we've got no need for an eraser. I have roughly sketched out where the name is going to be, but to be honest, you could call it whatever you like. It doesn't have to have the same name, or it doesn't have to have a name on at all. Well, 5 more minutes will do you, will it? I hope. We normally give about 15 minutes. It's a trickiest shape, but you know, you could even trace it if you wanted to or needed to, because it's all about the pen work, and I'd rather you have the drawing that you're mildly happy with. But you don't need to do every detail. Right, well, couple of minutes and then we'll start. I mean, it doesn't really matter what pen you use today. It could be a marker pen, it could be a biro, it could be a water-based pen. It doesn't matter because we're not using anything else with this. We're just using the pen and only the pen. So it'll be all about pen techniques. I once used this image. Oh gosh, do you know what? It must be at least 7 or 8 years ago now. Time flies so quickly, doesn't it? And we did this as watercolour. And it was quite nice to do with watercolour because you could get the real bright skies. Obviously we can't do a vibrant sky here because we're only using a black pen. But it hopefully will start to look a bit like an old-fashioned illustration or a wood print or something like that. I know a lot of artists are scared of pen because it is so permanent. But the only way you can break through that is by using it more and more and getting used to it. And I had 2 students that went on a painting holiday with a different artist along the coast, and she made them do a sketch every morning only using permanent pen, no pencil allowed. And they brought in the sketchbooks to the class to show me, and you could see on day 1 and 2 very, very hesitant marks, but by day 4 and 5 they were really going for it with the pen because it, you know, it's only a bit of paper at the end of the day, isn't it? It doesn't really matter. And it's a good way to just get over the fear by not relying. You know, there's the old stories of art teachers not allowing erasers. And, you know, that might seem quite harsh. But the reason why some teachers ban an eraser is because you tend to make more mistakes when you know you can erase them. You know what I mean? If you know there's always an eraser to hand, you're not really careful and you don't bother and you can be a bit sloppy. Whereas if you know you haven't got an eraser available, you have to be more careful. And you have to think a little bit more about where every line goes. And it's a bit like that with pen. My allergies are quite bad today now the sun's out. So you can... apologies for sounding a bit grotty. I've got a cup of tea on hand that I'll be slurping throughout the lesson. Okay, so mine's a 0.4, but to be honest it doesn't really matter. And mine's black. You could do it in brown or grey. Again, doesn't really matter hugely. And I'm actually I am outlining all of the main outlines. I haven't put the screen on, and because it's broken anyway, the kind of visor over the top, and I'll do that later on. I've got a piece of paper underneath my paper just so it doesn't go through my sketchbook. And I'm not worrying too much about anything. I think we can just... We did in the drawing class yesterday. It was a steam railway engine. Which it was tricky. It was tricky to do. So I'm just giving myself rough ideas, even though it's pen, just so I can see anywhere that's going to be dark is going to be fine, because it just gives me that chance of getting it right, you know. I'm not going to use a ruler. So just an outline makes it feel more committed. And if you do make a bit of an error and you know you've got lines that you're not quite sure why why you've got them, and I'm starting from the top working down because I don't want to smudge what I've got. I'm doing the thinner elements of the window frames to start with. Because the real pen techniques come in with how to shade and all of that jazz. So a little slightly wonky line is fine. Now, I'm not a boat enthusiast. I don't know much about anything to do with boats, if I'm honest. So, basically, I'm going to draw what I see, not what I know. Because I don't know anything. And in art, it's a really important thing to do. If in doubt, just draw what you see, because if you start making it up, which to a degree that also doesn't matter, but if you start making it up or you start thinking, oh well, I know what that is, you instantly add more detail than is possibly needed. Oh yes, pencil. Yeah. Pencil is a wonderful thing. Um, and again, we can. It's just good to express and try everything, isn't it, Margaret? I do like pencil drawing. And what's interesting is, as an adult, I've been teaching drawing classes for a long time. And I never really liked drawing until I started teaching it. However, when I look back over my A level pieces, it was all in charcoal and pencil, hardly any paint. So I must have really liked it when I was a teenager, but then forgotten about it for quite a while. And then in my 20s, started teaching drawing classes. And the more I teach it, the more I love it because of how it looks. So we have got a bit of broken cracked wood. And a crack there. So anything that's dark, I'm just going to pop in initially and see how it looks. Because there's an internal wooden frame. Have you got two different classes running at the same time, Margaret? Because I'm only talking about pen. Really today. Because sometimes if you click on a video and then click on the live video, the previous video could still be playing in the background. So just double check you've not got another one in the background. And I'm keeping it wonky. I'm not going to worry too much about not having perfect lines. It don't really matter. And we'll look at how we can add the background as well. Because once we've got a lot of the line working, we can erase the bits of pencil that are there, but that can be erased at any point. It doesn't just have to be now, because we're not going to be adding anything other than just black pen lines. I'm gonna give it the name of the boat. I'm gonna put that in now. That'll do. I'm going to let that sink in for a second, so I don't lean over it all. Entirely possible with me that I do. Because what we're going to look at today is obviously with pen, it's a constant flow. You can't vary the consistency. So it then means you can't do grades like you can in pencil. So it'll be other techniques. And then we'll look at doing the background bits. It's going to be more linear and slightly different. And there are lots of things that we can do to make things stand out and push things back. But it's not going to be solid. We're going to do more solid work with the boat. And I'm not going to change the pen. Now, that's all right, Mark. Good, I'm glad. Because that's happened to me a couple of times, and I thought I'd clicked off a video. And I've been watching the video that I wanted to watch, not just in these lessons, just in general. And I've been hearing voices, and I think, well, where on earth's that? I'm watching a video about a dog. I don't know what's going on about this video talking about cheese. I want to watch a dog. And then I realised that I'd got underneath an underlay of the previous video that I'd accidentally clicked on about cheese. And there I am watching a dog about a puppy learning how to do press buttons to communicate with its owner. So yeah, interesting. It happens. It happens to us all. So with these liner pens, this is a 0.4, you can get I think 12 different thicknesses, going down to something that's thinner than a hair width, which is great, and it depends. So you could switch and change all of your pens. So if you wanted finer lines, you could use a finer pen, and you could use a really thick chunky pen for thick lines. That's fine. They also come in light grey, dark grey and brown, and again, that's fine. But today I just wanted to use one technique with one pen. So for the background mounting, I'm actually going to do it in dots. I'm doing little dots to outline it. And it very much depends with the sky. If you wanted to add clouds, there are a few ways you could do it, but you could make it extremely stylized if you wanted to, or make it more solid. I'm even going to do the horizon line broken and dotted for now, and not straight, which is annoying, but never mind. This is going to take a bit of time, so I might not do all of it. I am going to be doing lots of dots. Now, this dotty technique is known as pointillism, or just dotty technique, and basically it works by the bigger the gap between the dots, the lighter the tone. the closer the gap between the dots, the darker the tone. And it's been a technique for artists for a long time, and it was then began to be used in the Impressionist period by artists like Georges Seurat and Pissarro and all of that gang for optical colour mixing. So where you want sort of tree lines, you just do closer together dots, and in between those you just do further apart dots. Also was then devised in the printing industry, which is still used today in newspapers and magazines and low budget print productions, known as Ben Day dots, which was then used by Roy Lichtenstein to create his famous comic book style artwork in the pop art period of the 60s. So it's a really well used technique. But it can take a very long time. Indeed. So I'll just do a bit of it because I'll get bored. We don't want it to look like it's got measles. But by doing it dotty rather than linear, it stops it from looking like it's attached to the boat. When we come to doing the sea, we can probably do that quite linear, but it's a different kettle of fish.
Yeah, no, not all of them. Maybe in there.
It's for watercolour shows.
I was going to have to go in.
She's lovely.
How is she paid?
Car payment, I suppose they will say. Maybe, I don't know. I can help you.
Okay.
So little clusters of dots. It's amazing how it works, and it just gives something different to the view. And you can do skies like this and give the illusion of cloud shapes, but it will look far more illustrative if you do it for clouds. I kind of like it. Maybe I'll do a bit later, because I want to make sure, because it's already 11 o'clock, well 20 to 11. There's me wishing time away. I was looking at the wrong thing. I'll maybe let it fade out towards the edges. So I'll just put the dots further apart. Farther apart. And obviously if I had a grey pen, I could do all of the background stuff in a grey pen and it would look further away. Just creates something different, doesn't it? I think we can see that the light is coming from the right, isn't it? It's coming from this angle, which is why everything is slightly bendy. I ought to draw the brackets, which I haven't even sketched. I'm having to wing it. Something like that, I think. Maybe. Because we need to make it feel grotty, because it is an old ship as well. So we'll see what we can do. And there's a bit of beach there, so I'll do that as a dot. Like that. See, where the water's going to be, the sea is quite dark, and it's darker than the darker points of the boat in shadow. And as long as you do horizontal lines, it works really nicely. Now there are a few ways you can work with this. Excuse my scrap paper. If I use a bit of scrap paper and line it up over the boat, I can use it as a mask. So I've got dark lines. It's going to be a little bit trickier for this end. And also it means I'm having to work backwards. If I was being myself, not teaching on telly, I'd do it upside down. Because I won't get my lines as straight doing it this way. Because of the way I'm angled. Could just use my left hand, I guess, but I'm not in a very ambidextrous mood this morning. But this should help. Give me a few lines. You see, they're curving up rather than going across, so I'm going to have to straighten it up a little. But using paper as a mask is such a useful tool. I've done it on a few demos before now, especially doing snow or buildings, because it gives you such a useful edge. And when you work with pen, it's often about angles. If you use the pen in an angle to follow the direction of the object that you're working in, it will work better. So like water is horizontal and flat, so you do your lines horizontal and flat. If you're doing something that was curved, you'd shade in a curve rather than horizontally, because then it wouldn't look as curved. And this way it outlines the boat. So we've brought the boat forward. I'll do a little bit more perhaps with the dots.
Hello.
Hi. We've gone dotty and liney, and we'll be doing some cross hatching next, I reckon. I want to do the main windows inside, which are broken, and it's just very dark inside that cabin. So there's a pen technique known as cross hatching. So hatching is when you go diagonally in one direction. And a bit like the pointillism, the closer your lines are together, the darker the effect. And that's really good for directional shading, for, for anything that's got an angle. It's perfect. Cross hatching, however, is when you hatch in one direction, then hatch in an opposing direction as many times as you want to get the strength of colour that you, or depth of tone that you need. So currently I'm just going in, I'm just hatching inside this window, but I want it to be almost black, or as black as I can get it. So this way is hatching. I'm going to go in the opposite diagonal as carefully as I can. So if you notice, I'm going I'm doing each part in two sections. And you might find that hatching in one direction suits your, whichever you're left or right-handed, it works better for you, or you might have to work with your hand in a different angle, or even turn your pad upside down. So that's cross hatching in two directions. So I've gone diagonally one way, diagonally the other. I might go vertical and horizontal. However much I need to do to fill in and make it as dark as I can. So when you look at wood carvings and ink blocks, lino prints, all of that kind of thing, especially the work of Hogarth in the 1700s, I mean, that was all done by carving into wood and then printing as woodblock prints. The added issue he would have had is that he wouldn't have known exactly how dark areas would have been until you put the ink on. And it would have to be backwards, so anything that's got writing on when you're doing a woodblock has to be mirror. It's phenomenal, really, how he managed to do such a wonderful job with all of his like Gin Lane and Beer Street. And let's make this window quite dark. So it is building up quite a lot. So lots of other things can be done in the crosshatch. I mean, it's a darker wood surround, but what I'm going to do is just hatch. Quite close together in one direction, or as close to one direction as I can go by hatching, and it won't make any difference into the dark window areas because they're already going to be dark. So if it makes them darker, then that's even better, isn't it? Don't go too close together because you will end up just going black and filling it all in, which it kind of defeats the object of a slightly darker window frame. We'll be breaking for a drink in about 10 minutes as well. So we've just got to remember too that the lighting is coming from the upper right, so everything is darker because this front bowed bit is a little bit darker. It's in front a little bit, so it will be casting shadows. So I'm going to hatch in the opposite direction, and I know that's a little bit weird. But hatching in the opposite direction all the way across the top will also hatch and shade the darker wood and any areas of white, so it feels like we've got some shading methods. I'm going to shade there like that for now. So it's just switching up angles and things more than anything. There is more of this as it curves slightly. So it's all little diagonal lines, and I'm going a different way for underneath the ledge of the windows, little shorter strokes. And by starting at the line that I want to shade and then moving down, as you take your pressure off each line, you see what will happen is you'll get a slightly thinner line, and that thinner line really helps get a tapered shadow. So I'll cross hatch that bit there just because I can. Hopefully you can see that we're starting to get shading occurring, and this bit of wood is really old. And cracked. I need to give myself a little thin line there. It's looking all right so far. It takes a while to build up shade and shadow, and that's okay. We've got the time. We've got an hour to go, so definitely got the time. I don't work in pen as often as I used to. I'll occasionally do a bit of pen work as a sketch every now and again, because it's quite portable. It's good to have a little sketchbook and a pen, whether that be biro. In fact, I don't know, must have been a couple of months ago we did 2 macaw parrots in biro on one of these sessions, and that was quite interesting.
Is that not what's in the box?
On the counter? Yeah, it came
Well, I'll go put them
9:15 this morning.
I'll go and put them in that out then.
Yeah, and
In
then
that out.
in the out, and if you put the box in the big boxes.
In the box in
But
the
if you
box?
notice, I've put the Posca pen stand.
I have. I've already sold a Posca pen this morning. I was scrambling on the floor.
Yeah, sorry,
Alright.
if I don't do that,
No, I know.
if they turn up at any point, it's
I
not
know.
going to be ready. I don't know where we're going to put the new stand. It's
No.
alright, we're having a new pen stand come, and it's massive, and our shop is not. And
What's
also
that
it
for? Yeah, I
means
know, just
yes, which we don't need a floor, and then we've got to stock it because we'll definitely not.
I know,
It's,
it's
it's a
for that
metre and a
massive
half tall.
Oh my goodness. That's as tall as me.
Yeah. We'll find a way. We'll find a way. So anything that's really dark, I'm just going to almost colour in solidly. Congratulations.
There was one bit of good news yesterday.
Good.
Everything's gone wrong yesterday.
Oh, that's good. Well done. By a long shot. A long shot. Yes? Good. A little bit of hatching there. Because if the light's coming from this angle, that this side's going to be dark, and it's all about playing off angles. So I'm gonna do hatching again, not cross hatching. but I will go in one direction first, and it doesn't have to all be perfect, because what I find is easier is by starting on a line, like so. This edge, you see, I'm going diagonally up, because you put more pressure down when you first start. It's why they say you should brush. You should change where you start brushing your teeth from every day, because when you start brushing, you put more pressure on. So if you brush your teeth in the same spot every day, you'll wear more enamel down in one area than you will another. It's what they say. You can see I'm slowly adding some tone. This linear line that I'm just butting up next to is going to be black, really dark. So I'm going to miss that out and then do the next bit. There. And fill in the rest of the lines. So that's just hatching in one direction, which I will also do. And the longer you do the lines, because you take the pressure off a little bit, so it kind of gets a little bit shorter and thinner. Like that. And if you wanted to darken an area, you can cross hatch, which we've already looked at. So if you want the darker area to come from the boat, the deck up, just go in a different direction. But try not to get it as dark as the window areas. Just because it will look a little bit weird. Oh gosh, it's 11 o'clock, you know. I didn't even realise it was cup of tea time. So I think we ought to break a little bit for tea. So I'm going to put my pen down. I'll make Jackie and myself a cup of tea because she's working hard on the shop floor, and then we can add more depth. But you can see it's starting to look more solid with every line that we start to add. So we'll be back in a couple of minutes. Right, I'm back, so we can do a little bit more with our art. So again, it's constantly looking at where darker lines are. Perfect timing.
Is it? Okay, thank you.
And you can just darken areas up, but with a little bit of extra cross hatching if you needed to. Little hatches around the side, but each one of these visors brackets has a hint of shading on as well. There's just lots of little bits that if you were painting it, you do automatically. But anywhere there's a slight lip, it's going to be dark. Even in the light areas. So just using a pen is an amazing way of creating things in a slightly different way to what maybe you'd be used to doing. We want it to feel like old wood. That's linear and cracked and old. A few more of these little dots and dashes. Even over where there's shading, because it will make it look better. The more bits you can add, even where it's shaded, makes a huge difference to how it's perceived. In terms of its age. This strip is much darker, so I will hatch, but much closer together. I find when I'm working in pen, weirdly, I tend to flit about a bit more than I do when I'm painting. No idea why, but I do. Slightly cross hatch and go over a little bit of darker area there, because the light can't get to that even more. It's looking boatish so far. That's good. I'm pleased. So in our remaining sort of 45 minutes, we can see what else we can do. The hardest part is going to be down here with the grass, because the grass is lighter than the dark part of the boat, so we're going to have to work our way down to that. and work our way up to it in the sort of nerve sense. I'm going to hatch this part. If you don't have much pressure and you work quite quickly with the pen, you can sometimes get thinner or lighter lines than if you're holding your pen upright and doing it. It's just a really clever way of making the most of one pen to give you a nice varied amount of light and dark. So I could hatch a little bit that's further away from the light here, because again, don't forget you've got your light source which is off on the right hand side. So parts that are further away from that light source will be darker, and we have got a shadow to put from that as well. That's being cast. So I've got to start thinking now about the curvature of the main area of the hull. And because of the way it's curved, it's curving this way. So the part where the writing is, the boat name, is actually slightly lighter than the rest of it. So the darkest part is in, and so it curves that way and that way. So the darkest part is down here, lightest part is here, but I do want to add a little bit of shadow. Now how I'm going to do that is I'm going to get my scrap bit of paper again, and I'm going to draw the edge of the line that I want the shadow to be in. And work fast so I've got lighter lines, because the longer you linger with a pen, the darker and thicker the lines are. So if you can get it quite quickly, because I want it to feel like a shadow, so there's no outline of it, which is why I've just used the paper. You see the difference? It's not outlined like the rest of the boat. And we're going to have planks on this side, and it's going to crack, and all of that jazz. Something like that, maybe. I'll do a little bit of cross-hatching underneath the rim, like we've done everywhere else. Because even when we shade over the top of it, it will still get darker each time, which is really what we're after. So it's just little things make a big difference. I'm not going to do the hull until I've drawn an outline for the grassy areas. I'm just having a slurp of my tea. I'm very allergy today.
Yeah.
Are you?
Yeah.
Oh, actually, do you know what I'd forgotten to do? I've forgotten to put that broken Perspex visor on. So if I do that quite quickly, something like that. That looks alright. Broken. We want broken. Right, grass time. You see there's a bit of beach there. And then there's little short grass, which I'm doing the zigzags, little zigzags. And then as I get down to this part, I'm going to do longer lines. I'm trying to be as random as I can for now, at least. Over here though, it doesn't need to be a zigzag. I can actually do thin grass lines. So I have to work slightly differently now, because the way I would do this shading of the hull would actually be in terms of, let's get that line in there, would be cross hatching, but we've got to do it slightly differently because of the grassy bit in front. Oh, customer. He's exactly the same colour as the canvases, so I didn't spot him until he just moved.
Well, I just don't tell them that.
Look on the screen and you'd see the cell. They blend in very well. So basically, I'm having to go in between my grass so I've got light bits, thin bits, short bits and long bits. So currently my hatching is going to be upwards. And that way, you see, it makes the front look, this grass, it brings it forward, you see. So the black line, I'm definitely going to make sure is the darkest point. So I'm going to deliberately now hatch in, I don't know, 3 or 4 different directions from that line. And I'm not going to be overly neat about it just yet. Really dark. I might go a little bit darker as well in a sec. Yeah, I definitely need to go a bit darker, I think. see that's dark as well. Nice and dark there. There's kind of a line that runs, and I'm doing this by eye, and I may regret it. Runs like that. Now, choking. We haven't got a huge amount of time left. But what I want to do is I want to get the curvature of the hull. So my shading is going to be slightly curved. And you can see I'm still using, I haven't switched pens. But by angling the pen on its edge, and working swiftly, it allows me to do much more delicate and faster shading, almost as if you're using a pen that's run out. And you can do this with biro. The only things you can't do it in is with pens that have got very, very thick edges, like a chunky marker or something. I'm just having to stand up for this bit now. And by varying the pressure, I can get, I don't want necessarily the effect of planks as such, but I do want a linear feel, especially as it gets further down, because as we've said, it's not only a curvature that way, it's a curvature that way, isn't it? So something well worth. And this is only a basic texture. I will be doing other parts. And because I'm using permanent pen, you see, even better, because it doesn't smudge, and no matter what I do, it won't smudge. If I wanted to add colour to this at some point, excuse me, I swallowed my tea the wrong way earlier, and it's been quite annoying. And I could put pencil crayon on this because I'm using, this is in my sketchbook, so it doesn't go through either, by the way, but I'm using my sketchbook. But if I wanted it to do this on watercolour paper, I could even add watercolour over the top. And then I can use this swirly motion just to give me a few cracks or flaky areas in the boat, because we still want it to feel like it's old. Because that was the whole lesson today, and it's because it's the last Thursday of the month, isn't it? So next week will be the first Thursday of the month, which is usually drawing. I will just let you know what the subject is for that before we carry on, while it's in my head. Oh, it's a badger in pencil, and you might find an embossing tool useful. So I'm doing all of the left to right linear cracks and lines at the moment, but you don't have to keep them neat. Zigzag them a little. And then I'll start looking at doing some downward curved lines. Then just a little hint with the grass, and then that will give it. You can see how much more solid it's looking now we've got the shade in, and it's amazing what you can do with just one pen. I mean, as I said, there are about 12 or 14 widths now going to really thick, but I tend to miss out every other one. Same with my brushes. I don't need to have a 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, because with a 2 I can press down hard and get a 3, or with a 4 I can get a bit lighter and get a 3. So I think it's just good to be careful. You don't want to fall down the rabbit hole of just buying everything, and as much as we're an art shop and we'd like you to buy everything, we also want to be responsible with that kind of thing, and make sure you get what you need rather than what you think you need, which is not always the same thing. Yeah, I think we've got a nice old boat, a nice old looking boat to a degree. And for the grassy bit, you see, I am going to do actual flicky uppy grassy lines in random directions. And we're going to soften it out a bit. I'm not going to bother with the dandelions. I do love dandelions, and this afternoon we're doing a butterfly on one, on a seed head, but they just look like little weird squiggles if we try to do them today, because they're just interspersed in this long grass, so there's not much point. And as I move over to the left hand side, my long flicks are going to be slightly shorter because this is longer grass here. So because I'm fading it out a little bit here, I'm not going to do lots of, because otherwise it would just take me another hour or two to do all of these each blade of grass. I don't really want to do that, thanks. So I'll just bring some of it further out to give an idea, like we've done with all the other areas, just to give an idea that it's extended, but not necessarily have to spend all the time doing it. I think that could work. I'm just adding some darker parts inside this shorter grass where there's a bit of extra shadow. On the boat. Maybe just a few little dots on the beach to show it's a beach. I don't know. Dots and scratches over the boat just so it feels old. It is an old abandoned boat. I really don't, I hope it doesn't get used because it's not really seaworthy, especially now I've got my pen on it. Do you know what, I'm not going to do anymore. So I'm just going to erase my pencil lines. Make a nice crisp image. What do you think? I think it looks alright, doesn't it? I'm not going to do anything with the sky because I think it will it will only create more of a problem in terms of dark and light and all of that kind of thing. So I'm going to not do it. I think it gives enough. If I was going to do any more, I would probably go even darker within those windows. I might actually just do a little bit more darkness in here because it's good to just keep looking at the reference image to see where all your dark bits are. Customer. I think it's Katie. It's hard to tell people with masks on now. I think I can recognise my students with the tops of their heads, but it's very because you all look down, you see, in real life classes, so it's easier to tell from the top of the head, but without being able to see the mouth and just a hint of an eye, tricky. That's better. I'm fairly happy with that. I think it looks like what we set out to do, an old fishing boat in pen. And that's exactly what it is. I could make it more battered, I suppose, but I don't know. I think if I make it more battered, it'll look like one of the boats out of Jaws. So I don't really want to, but I will once we've said our goodbyes, I will take a photograph of this and post it underneath where the reference image is, that I posted earlier this morning, just so you've got a good, like I do every week, so you've got a good reference, so you can see the photograph and you can see how I got there, and then you've got the lesson to show you. I could dirty up the name a little bit more, perhaps, I don't know, with a few more darker bits, so it's not as obvious that the name is... I don't want the name to feel like it's stuck on, you see. Well, that works. Just a few more darker lines. Really go for the oomph. Yeah, that works. Just mucks it and roughs it up a bit. So coming up over the next week, this afternoon we're doing a butterfly on a dandelion seed head with forget-me-nots in watercolour. Friday afternoon is a canal view with a bridge with lots of purple strong shadows in watercolour. It's bank holiday on Monday. Tuesday afternoon we're doing a sunset on a lock with a boat in acrylics. Tuesday evening is an old doorway in pencil. Wednesday's drawing class is a beach in Dorset with figures. Next Thursday morning is your badger in pencil. And I do love badgers. They're one of my favourite things, so I've tried to creep them in as much as we can. We did a watercolour of a badger a couple of weeks ago, which was nice. Lots of things to look forward to. So I'm going to leave that there. My pencil's rubbed out, and yeah, I'm fairly pleased with how it's come out, to be honest. To say it's just under 2 hours, by the time, we've got from drawing, 20 minutes drawing to then do, or tracing, doesn't really matter, to then spending a good 1 hour and a half solid pen work. It looks like it's supposed to, but hopefully you've learned a little bit more about pen shading and directional shading, hatching, cross hatching, all of that kind of thing, and each thing will give you more solidity to your pen piece, because it's not all flat. If we'd done all of our shading in one angle for everything, it would not look like a three-dimensional boat. So thanks so much for your company, and if you're watching on catch up, thank you for joining me, and it'd be really lovely to see what you do, if you know how to, or if you're able to post your image that you've drawn. It would be lovely to see, it really would. So thank you, have a wonderful weekend ahead, enjoy the nice weather. It's a long time coming, and it looks like it's nice all bank holiday weekend. So stay safe, stay dry, look after yourselves, and I'm sure I'll see you very soon. Bye bye everybody. Bye bye.